Hello there.
So, I was talking to some other YouTubers in the Star Wars game space recently, and some other YouTubers that not even are involved with Star Wars, but gaming in general. Hell, I even spoke to an Australian rules football YouTube channel, and they've all said the same thing to me at some point recently. And it's something that I have touched on briefly in the past, but I want to make one big dedicated video on it today, and that is the big problem Star Wars games have right now. And I fear that Star Wars games are going to miss out on their full potential in the coming years unless something changes. Now that problem is the lack of online multiplayer Star Wars games. Where are the multiplayer Star Wars games? Not just now, obviously, it's a barren wasteland at the moment, but in the future. Now we know multiplayer games have just about taken over the industry with battle royales, copy and paste annual shooters, unfinished bug-infested franchise titles, you get it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's definitely not. So the direction that Star Wars games are going has a lot of people really excited purely for the fact that it's going against industry logic and focusing on single player and single player only. We have a massive roadmap with nearly a dozen games on the way over the next 4 or so years. But I guess you can say 6 to 7 years given the recent news of Star Wars Eclipse being stupidly far away. And pretty much every single game at this point is known to be a single player game with only 1, maybe 2 having a little multiplayer element in some way, shape or form. Now, not to discredit the catalogue of games we have coming, the games we have coming are just like Obi-Wan booty delicious, but it's basically all single player. Some people live purely for single player, so this just sounds like music to their ears. You know, nearly a half a decade roadmap of Star Wars games with basically nothing but single player. I understand why people would be excited for that, as am I. But it's not really as great as it sounds, and that's why I'm making this video, because I am extremely excited for the future of Star Wars games, but there is just something missing from it that has me worried for how things are actually going to pan out. And I think at some point, it's going to swing round and bite Lucasfilm Games on the ass. It's going to turn a lot of players away. People might get sick and tired of it. The games will come and go and nobody will really care. The hype and build up for these games simply just might not match the payoff. So let's get into why I and many others clearly believe this to be an issue, and why the complete lack of multiplayer Star Wars games could be an issue going forward. This could be a long video, so kick back and let's chat. Now, multiplayer Star Wars games have been just so deeply ingrained into the Star Wars game spectrum as single-player titles. Hell, often the two cross over and we get the best of both worlds, like look at the Battlefront games of old and new. Bit of single-player, bit of multiplayer, everyone's happy. But the road going forward is this meme in a nutshell. If you want to know the future of Star Wars games, look no further than what is on your screen right now. And it has me and people that, you know, aren't even Star Wars fans scratching their heads a little bit. Single player games are going to dominate Star Wars games going forward, which I think is absolutely fine. Like, don't get it twisted. I know a lot of people are going to take this video out of context as it is. I'm just grateful we're even getting some games, seeing as where we were at the end of 2020 with Star Wars games with absolutely no hope at all. So I am fine seeing more single player Star Wars games than multiplayer, because realistically we only need one great multiplayer game to avoid this entire issue that we're talking about today. And I'm going to get into why that is. Now, the peak of Star Wars games since the LucasArts days is without question the end of 2019. Before that, you're looking back to 2005. So the end of 2019 was the peak of modern Star Wars games. Now, I wonder why that was. Well, I'll tell you exactly why that was. It had a lot to do with Jedi Fallen Order coming out and being not only financially a goldmine for EA, but critically one of the best games of the year. It has its haters, and they're not happy unless they're letting you know about it every 5 seconds. But the bottom line is the game was a huge success financially and critically, and it used the hype of the rise of Skywalker in its release schedule to dominate sales at the time. Not only that, it was also tag teaming its release with the one multiplayer Star Wars game that was also flying at that moment, becoming one of the most popular games at the time despite all the controversies it faced in the years prior, and that game was Battlefront 2. The online multiplayer Star Wars shooter that harbored just about every single Star Wars fan with a controller in their hand. EA and Disney's marketing team used their brains and realized that releasing single player games alongside big live service multiplayer games, especially in the lead up to a movie, is a great idea. Who would have thought? So you can begin to see where I'm going with this. Jedi Fallen Order would not have sold anywhere near as well as it did if it didn't release in this time period, where the only multiplayer Star Wars game that there was flying, and the Rise of Skywalker hype was building. Now, take the Rise of Skywalker out of the equation though, which I'm sure most of us would like to do. Fallen Order would not have sold as well as it did if it wasn't for Battlefront 2 at the time. That's just fact. Battlefront 2 was what held the interest in the Star Wars game niche in the lead up and after. It was amazing seeing people that were so engaged into Battlefront 2 seamlessly hop over to Fallen Order and then come straight back. The amount of people I saw saying things like they were done with Star Wars games, but Battlefront 2 pulled them back so they were willing to give Fallen Order a go. It was unreal. It played a huge role in the success of Fallen Order. Now, not to say Fallen Order would have bombed if it wasn't for this. Fallen Order is a great game in its own right, and because of how well it was received, it probably would have done well anyway. But the balance of multiplayer and single-player Star Wars games was struck perfectly, and both games saw success as a result of the balance being struck perfectly. They played off of each other for a long time, and everyone was happy, because there was something for everyone at that time, and alas, the peak of modern Star Wars games. Coincidence? I don't think so. Now, I brought this up back in 2020 just after Battlefront 2's live service was cancelled, and that was the structure of Star Wars games and what's probably going to work best for players and the companies releasing the games. Obviously, we here on the channel care about the players because we are the players, but we do need to bring success for the people making these games into the equation to even begin to have a logical discussion. We can't just say, oh yeah, they should do this, 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 and this. That's what should happen because that's what we want. You've got to take into account business-wise what actually makes sense. Otherwise, everything you're saying is a pipe dream. There are a lot of people out there that expect games to get ongoing content for free, and for free-to-play games not to be monetized with a battle pass or something. Those people seem to think that money grows on trees. I see a lot of people scoff at the idea of a free-to-play Star Wars game with a battle pass or something because they don't want to pay for the battle pass, even though the game would be free. Which 9 out of 10 times you don't even need to buy the battle pass to play it anyway, but there's just an incentive to. And these guys are like, nope, I shouldn't have to spend any money. It's like, that's not how it works. The developers and publisher don't fund their games with good vibes. If you think you're going to get a AAA game released or a game near of that scale, and you not have to pay anything, or at least have it a part of a subscription like Game Pass, then you might as well pack up and move to Mars because it's not happening on this planet. Most of those comments that I get on that topic come from, boomers that want games to be run like they were back in the 90s and 2000s, but unfortunately, that's just not the way it is anymore, for better or worse. People need to come to terms with that. Sorry for that little tangent, I shouldn't have to say that, but every time I talk about something like this, Jimmy in the comments will complain about having to actually pay for a product. So yeah, excuse my little tangent there, but I just had to say it. So anyway, obviously you need to think what makes sense for both players and the business side of things. Now, I still to this day think Lucasfilm Games and EA as well, as they are going to be a part of the future of Star Wars games too. I think they need to have one large-scale online multiplayer Star Wars game with a live service, obviously without the pay to win. Even one that follows maybe a free-to-play module and then has a single-player game release around it. From a business standpoint, it makes perfect sense. Have your multiplayer game, which is the one constant in the Star Wars sort of niche, and release your single player titles around it. This way you have a constant stream of revenue and new players coming in from the live service online multiplayer game. Because it's the one constant that you have, it keeps things relevant for the IP. It can piggyback off the Disney Plus shows as it's a live service game, so it's going to get more and more players coming in constantly. Because it can pretty much just leech off of the Disney Plus shows or the movies. And doing all that in tandem with the single player releases, people are already there, ready to go for the single player outing. You'd barely have to market the single player games. And then the players, once they're done, can go straight back to the multiplayer game. And you don't lose the player and then hope that they pop up again in a year's time when you finally release another game that people are only going to care about for a couple weeks. That player has something to go to. It's not like they knock out the single player game in a week and then twiddle their thumbs for about a year until a new one comes out. No, they'll have a game that they can just run straight back to that keeps the Star Wars game community thriving. It benefits the players, it benefits Lucasfilm, it benefits the studios. It's a win-win for everyone. It keeps people engaged, it lets each game leapfrog the next and just bounce off of each other's popularity. So the business side of things for Lucasfilm Games, EA, whoever, they get the best of both worlds. And more importantly for the players, we get the best of both worlds, like I said before. We get to play both single player and multiplayer Star Wars games. Everyone's happy, everyone's got something for them. Unlike what we're staring at now with future Star Wars games, where it's just single player this, single player that. Oh, you like multiplayer? Well, screw you, there's nothing for you here. At best, with this roadmap, we're going to be lucky to have something of a tiny scale of multiplayer with what we have announced right now. And that's what I'm going off right now. Things could change or are perhaps already in motion for some of these announced games to go fully into multiplayer that we just don't know about yet. And I really hope that's the case. But leaks aside from games years and years away, it's all single player going forward. And majority of the Star Wars game market is multiplayer based and has been for a few years now. There is a reason Battlefront 2 lasted for as long as it did. Star Wars fans love those big immersive online battles. The wars of Star Wars, they're perfectly replicated in multiplayer. Battlefront 2 should have died shortly after it came out, and if it was any other franchise, it would have. I mean, look at Battlefield 2042, perfect example. That's dead and buried already. But Battlefront 2, in a worse situation, kept going. The Star Wars community is just different. The multiplayer market for Star Wars games has been everything, and now going forward, it's nothing. And I think that's just not right or a smart move on Lucasfilm Games' part. Not to say Star Wars fans don't like single player adventures or anything. No one in their right mind would ever claim that. They will always have their place, and single player is responsible for some of the best Star Wars games we have ever seen. But to cut out one half of the market, especially one half that's so big, to just go headfirst into single player, I don't know, it doesn't seem right. And as an avid Star Wars game fan, like, take YouTube out of the equation. As just a footnote, I know there are going to be a lot of people that comment on this video saying, oh, you only want multiplayer Star Wars games to keep your channel going. All I'll say to that is, dude, are you dumb? Look at the single player lineup coming. I don't need a multiplayer game for my channel. I want it as a fan, and I think it's just the best idea. Anyway though, as a fan, I feel like there is just this gaping hole with Star Wars games right now, and it looks like that hole is going to remain there for the next 5 years. Now, does this mean we should get a Battlefront 3? Because I know that's what everyone's going to be thinking. Ideally, it would be perfect, and it would, provided if done right, see all Star Wars games benefit, like we saw with Battlefront 2 and Fallen Order in 2019. And God knows it would please just about every single Star Wars fan on Earth. But DICE doing a Battlefront 3, I think, is a terrible idea. They don't know what direction is up at the moment. So, should another studio make their own Battlefront franchise? Personally, I think that that's what Lucasfilm Games should be looking at. But I mean, it doesn't even really need to be a Battlefront game. Reinvent the wheel a little bit when it comes to multiplayer Star Wars games. Create something new. Or if you want to switch the money-making cap on for a second, Apex Legends is a cash cow for EA right now. And I love Apex personally. I think it's clear the best battle royale, and it's constantly expanding. And as Apex is a spin-off of Titanfall, do something similar as a spin-off for Star Wars. Instead of the legends in Apex, have heroes like in Battlefront. Respawn are all in on Star Wars going forward, and Respawn are the minds behind Apex Legends. So, you know, they're pretty close to the IP anyway. I've heard worse ideas. But to summarize this big ass video, I know there wasn't really any structure behind it. Like I said, both people in this community and outside of it have sort of just struck the light bulb in my brain with this entire situation of where are the multiplayer Star Wars games? Like, what is the deal? So I thought I'd just throw all this together. Some people will have disagreed with what I said in this video, but oh well, each to their own. I just think the future of Star Wars games is so bright, but it is missing something big. A proper multiplayer game. It just seems like there's a big missed opportunity here, and a massive waste of potential for what should be the undisputed GOAT era of Star Wars games. But without the presence of a proper multiplayer experience, I think things might fall short in the long run, and I hope Lucasfilm Games are listening to stuff like this while they plan out what they're going to do, So yeah, those are my thoughts on the big issue Star Wars games are facing going forward. Whether you disagree, whether you agree, take it or leave it, is what it is. I just wanted to get it out there. It's all food for thought at the end of the day. I know a lot of you are also feeling this way, so hopefully we've got something in the pipeline for multiplayer, because although the lineup of single player games is looking, like I said, Obi-Wan booty thick, there's something big missing. But guys, that is just about going to do it for this video. Be sure to drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new for all things Star Wars games. And also be sure to check out my buddy's podcast. I was on there as a guest recently. We talk about YouTube, Star Wars games, life, and a bit more from my personal life. So check it out. But that's just about going to do it for me today. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you later.